All right, in this section here, we're going to learn a lot more about functions and how we can use functions to make bigger and better programs. Before we begin though, I want to review some built-in functions that come with JavaScript and see what kind of lessons we can learn from them. So we'll look at these built-in functions and yeah, see what we can see. All right, so I've got some start code here. You don't need to code along with me, just follow along. This is more of a big idea lesson. We'll talk about the main ideas. So we're going to look at each built-in function. We're going to consider what's the purpose of that function, what data gets passed into the function, and what does the function return. Okay, those are some of the key ideas of a function, right? So the first function we have here is console.log, and I have a little example. I've got the program running here, and in the console we can see an error. Well, oh, this has something to do with live server, I think. Don't worry about it. Okay, so console.log, hello console, there it is. Yay. Okay, so what is the purpose of this function? All right, well, it prints a message in the console. That's what it does. What data gets passed in? Well, that's right here, right? We have the name of the function, console.log, followed by these parentheses, and then we pass in inside of the parentheses the information, which is the message to be printed. And then does this return anything? Nothing. Right? It doesn't. It displays a message, but it doesn't really return anything. We'll see later on that when a function does return something, you can store what it returns in a variable. It doesn't really make sense here to store what this returns in a variable. I'll go let response be assigned console.log, and then we'll console.log the response and see, okay, well, if this function returns something, I could store it in a variable. What's inside of that variable? And you'll see it's undefined. Right? The console.log doesn't, its job isn't to return something, it just prints out something. Okay, anyway, so let's get rid of that and get rid of that. That's console.log. Okay, we invoke the function, give it a message, it does its job. All right, alert. Okay, so alert, hello world. This one's very similar. Hey, there it is, right? Very similar to console.log. It prints out a message, but it does it inside of an alert box. So what's the purpose? Print a message in an alert box. What data gets passed in? Well, it needs the message, right? Again, we pass in a message into the function. And does it return anything? Again, just like console.log, it doesn't return anything. It displays something, but it doesn't return anything. So no return value. All right. And I'm going to comment these out as we go because that alert's going to get annoying as it pops up every time. Okay, here we go. All right, prompt now. All right, I've got some code here. I'll uncomment, control / to uncomment it. So now this one here, prompt is different. This one makes sense. We're asking a question. The user will respond, right? Let's save this. This is a question, and I'll just say response. And this is your response, and I spelled response wrong. There we go. Blah, oops, in the wrong spot. Here we go, blah. This is your response, blah. All right. So again, the purpose of this function is to print a message in a prompt box and return user's response. Right? So this time data gets passed in. Again, it's a question. And then the data returned is the user's response. Right? And because this function returns something, we can store what it returns in a variable and then use that variable. Right? I'm just outputting this is your response, and then we look up what's inside of that variable, and away we go. Okay, ta-da! Okay, let's comment that out now. All right, confirm. We'll uncomment some code here. Again, just select it, control / so confirm. Are you sure you want to do this? There's nothing to type in, but I can OK or cancel. If I hit OK, confirm returns true, right? This confirm variable, it returns true. And then I can test that, right? If it's true, do this. True, okay, here we go. And if I go cancel, then it's false. All right, maybe later. Okay, so the purpose is to basically ask a yes/no question. The data passed in will be the question, and then the data returned will be true or false, right? They either hit OK and it returns true, or they hit cancel and it returns false. Cool. Okay, so hopefully you're starting to see with these functions, there's a theme, right? Every function has a job to do. It has a purpose. We can pass data into the function, and the function can return things. It doesn't have to, but it can return things. Okay, let's look at math.random. This one, again, returns a value, right? Because we can store it in a variable here. Let's run this. And we get a random number every time I run this, right? Math.random gives me a random decimal between 0 and 1. And then I print it out. So what's its purpose? Generate a random decimal between 0 and 1. Data passed in, nothing. Right? We can try to put stuff in here, but it doesn't. Math.random doesn't need any information. It always returns a number between 0 and 1. Okay? And then that's what it returns, a random decimal between 0 and 1. All right, and then we can print that out. Cool. Okay, next up, let's comment this out again. Math.square root. Okay, so again, similar on this one, it returns a value, right? We're taking the square root of something, but this requires some information, right? What am I going to take the square root of? 25, how about 49, right? Nice perfect squares. It doesn't have to be a perfect square, it'll return a decimal as well, right? I think, save, there we go, 7.07. Anyway, the purpose of this is to take the square root of a provided number. What's the data that gets passed in? A number. What gets returned? The square root of the number. Perfect. Okay, one more. Document.getElementById is another function. And these are all built-in functions, right? Actually, I wanted to show you that. If I type in, say, alert. Now, in order to call the function, I need the parentheses, right? That's how we use the name of the function followed by parentheses and give it the message, and it'll do its job. But if I just type in the console here the name of the function without the parentheses, you'll see that it shows you, oh, it's a function called alert with some native code inside of it. So we didn't write the alert function. It's built into JavaScript, right? It comes with JavaScript. The programmers who made JavaScript wrote some code. We don't get to see that code. It's kind of hidden. It just says, hey, there's some native code. Don't worry about it. Just use this function. It'll do its thing. All right? So yeah, these are functions that are predefined, right? They're built into JavaScript, and we can just use them, which is cool. All right, so getElementById, if I go to my HTML, this h1 heading right here, okay, it has this ID of heading. So we say, hey, get the element with the ID heading, and I can store a reference to that HTML element in this variable, and then I can log it to the console, and we should see, cool, right? So it gives me a reference to that entire HTML element, right? It's the h1 with that ID. Okay, again, what's the purpose? The purpose is to get a reference, I guess, to an HTML element. The data passed in is the ID of the element, right, as a string. And what does it return? It returns a reference to the HTML element. And again, a good way to remember, does a function return something? Does it make sense to store what it returns in a variable? Right? Math.square root made sense. Math.random made sense. Confirm made sense. Prompt made sense. Alert did not. Console.log did not. Right? Okay. And we will stop there. Just a quick little thing here. A function is a named block of code. Right? A function has a name and it stores code. I think of functions as potential code. Right? They store code until we want to use it. They have the potential to do things, but they won't do it until we say, function, do your job. And we can get a function to do its job by using the name of the function and then put parentheses after it. Right? That invokes the function or calls the function. We can pass data into a function. Functions can return data. We saw that a lot. And the idea here is that functions have a specific purpose or job. And we're going to be writing our own functions to do certain jobs. We're going to break up our programs into chunks, into modules. right? So it's more organized so that we can have a program where every task kind of has its own function. All right, that is our introduction to functions by looking at these built-in functions and what they do. Hope that made sense, and take care. We'll see you in the next video.